going on, everybody? My name is Michael Gray, and I'm a mass communications broadcast journalism major here at Virginia Union University. Earlier, I got to sit down with athletic director Coach Joe Taylor, who was just recently inducted into the 2019 College Football Hall of Fame. We got to talk about his experience as a head coach, his experience as an athletic director, and what motivates him every day to continue to do what he loves to do. Wanted to ask you, how do you feel about being inducted into the 2019 College Football Hall of Fame, the same year that they're celebrating the 150th anniversary of college football?
Well, Mike, I tell you, it's just really, it's really humbling. And as I have said so many times, it just simply means that the Lord has really blessed me with a great, surrounding, great administrators, great assistant coaches, and above all, some great student athletes. You don't reach this pinnacle by yourself. It just really validates that there's been a lot of great people in my life, and again, so very humbling, and I really look at it as a real blessing, really.
Gotcha. Outside of the accolades of everyone else, what does this achievement personally mean for you?
Well, I've always said this, and this is a statement that I always live by. Hard work does not go unnoticed. We probably got it from an old coach that used to be at Michigan, Bo Schembechler. He used to always say that. And we were at a convention some years ago when he was speaking, and I always believe that, don't ever get outworked. You have to give yourself permission to win. And permission to win is just simply meaning outworking your opponent. Whether it's film study, whether it's, staying in great shape, recruiting, just putting forth your best effort. And when you do that, you're giving yourself permission to win.
You've compiled 233 wins in your career as a head coach. How does it feel to be in the top 10 winning percentages of all time in FCS coaching history? Well,
Mike, I learned a long time ago that I've never gone to a Kentucky Derby and seen a donkey, right? It's about horses. So the great, your Eddie Robinsons, your Jay Gaithers, those guys taught me a long time ago that, you're going to put the work in terms of the board, you're going to put the film work in, but it's important to be a great recruiter. And over the years, I've just had tremendous character student athletes, and not always the best talent, because I found out that character wins over talent every day. And it's about getting people that are serious about education. They don't mind following instruction. They don't mind being pushed. So those 233 victories is because, again, I've just been fortunate to have some great young people to work with, and also some great coaches.
As a former head coach, how does it feel to be able to impact so many players' lives growing up?
Yeah, well, there's a sign there that says over 1 million impacted, and that was given to me when I retired in 2012 at Florida A&M by the AD down at Bethune. And I've always looked at coaching as a ministry because you're always trying to enhance the lives of others. And as you do that, certainly you are enhancing your own life. So I wrote a book called The Making of a Champion, Success is an Inconvenience. And what that really talks about is a lot of young men in that book that are giving testimonies that while they were playing for me, at times they didn't quite have it all figured out. In fact, sometimes they thought I was crazy. But now that they're out in the real world, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're taking care of their own families, they see what we were trying to say to them in reference to, when you treat a man as he is, he will be. Treat him as he can be, and he will become. So it was always preparing young men, not just for football, but for this game called life. And again, we've just been fortunate to be around some great young people And my definition of a coach has always been a coach is someone who takes people to places that they cannot go by themselves. And I felt obligated to have a blueprint that would create development, purpose, focus, and above all, goal setting in all of the people that I coach. And you know, there are a lot of them still in the NFL, but again, they're doctors, they're lawyers, taking care of their families. So just been blessed, being around a lot of great young people. As much as they say I touch them, they touch me as well.
That's amazing. You were here as head coach at Virginia Union University from 1984 to 1991. Were there some memories that stuck with you, or any specific memory in particular?
Well, a couple of things stick out. Number one, I left in '91 to go down to Hampton, but I personally came back in May of that same year because 40 student athletes, football, marched across the stage on Huffy Field, and that was just a great feeling. But I think the thing that probably brought my career out of obscurity into a national scene, Eddie Robinson, who was the great coach at Grambling, he came through, he gave me a call one day, and the Whitney Young Classic was played every year in New York. And he wanted us to play Grambling. And he was just looking for some team to just beat up on and brag in front of his alumni in the area. Because, to be honest with you, his water boy was bigger than anything that we had on our team. But we went up, and I said my career began to come out of obscurity because New York, as you know, that's the media mecca of the world. And to be playing Grambling, which was, Eddie Robinson and, one of the greatest coaches ever to be in this game. In fact, Eddie has over 400 victories, a record that's not ever to be broken. But anyway, we agreed to play Grambling, and we went up. And we went up on Wednesday because I knew that my players could not take in the same day Eddie Robinson and Giant Stadium, where the likes of Lawrence Taylor played, And so we went up on Wednesday, and we practiced that Thursday. And when we went out for practice on Thursday in Giant Stadium, just as I figured, we couldn't remember not one play. We was all over the place. Everybody's looking around because of the atmosphere, not playing in that type of arena, that type of environment. It was huge for us. And then we went back Friday, and we practiced again, and we remembered at least half the plays. Well, by Saturday, now we're familiar. We are used to being in Giant Stadium, and lo and behold, the final score was 46-37. That was really monumental for my career, for the young men that were on that team, that a lot of them are still around and they come by now, but also for Virginia Union. To be on that big of a stage and to have that kind of success, it's a memory that we all will remember forever.
Gotcha. Outside of that game, you've had 4 national championships, four national championships, 14 conference championships, and 7 bowl games. Outside of that game at Giant Stadium against Grambling State, is there any other game that sticks out to you?
Well, there are quite a few, to be honest. And you really remember the losses more so than the wins, because as a competitor, you work to win. But when you lose, you're always trying to figure out what could have happened differently. Was there a play? Was there a player? Was there a situation that we didn't handle or manage properly? But I do remember there was a Heritage Bowl that was played in Atlanta, and it was between the SWAC champion and the MEAC champion. And the last game for that bowl, the Heritage Bowl, was in 1999, and Hampton played Southern.
Been staggering. Earlier today, head coach Joe Taylor led the #1 team in black college football, the Hampton Pirates, into the RCA Dome for one of the most anticipated matchups of the year.
And of course, we ended up winning that ball game, but it was NBC primetime. McDonald's was the main sponsor. And being that it was prime time, it was a good victory. It was the last. I guess the facsimile of that game now is called a Celebration Bowl. Dr. Thomas has brought it back. It's on ESPN. But I also think that's a Saturday game just before Christmas. So they brought it back, but at the time that was the final game, so there was a lot of honoring going on, and to win that game was really special because it was the final year for that particular bowl.
Now that just listening to your coaching history and understanding that you're on your way to the Hall of Fame 2019 college football, how was the transition from being a head coach to now becoming an athletic director?
Well, Mike, that's a good question. Really the principles that I use as a coach, I just transferred those same principles to athletic administration. Because again, to me, it was a transition from coaching players to coaching coaches. And either way, my idea was to always get people to elevate their standards. And when we talk about putting a philosophy in place, as a coach, you do the same thing as an administrator. You talk about vision, you talk about mission. All of that's the same. And being that we had been successful with a philosophy as a coach, we really just transferred those same philosophies into, now AD, because to me, it's still a ministry. You're always trying to improve the lives of others. Yes. And when you're doing that, the principles really don't change a lot.
Definitely. You had a lengthy resume as far as playing and coaching a career, so many different universities and high schools and stuff like that. With all your options, what was it about Virginia Union University to be athletic director for you that was so intriguing?
Well, first of all, back in the late 70s, back 1980, was my first time coming to Virginia Union, and I came as Willard Bailey's offensive coordinator. And funny story, Mike, I was out at Eastern Illinois. I was the offensive line coach. We had just won a national championship in Division II. And one of the young men, when I first went out to Eastern, I was able to take 15 young men with me from D.C. to Charleston, Illinois. Mm-hmm. And of the 15, 12 stayed and graduated. Well, this one particular guy, Brian Houston left Eastern, and he came to Virginia Union as a defensive end. And he was in Willard Bailey's office one day, and Willard, again, was the head coach here. And he was saying, listen, it's this young guy out there at Eastern Illinois. Coach, he's really offensive-minded. You really need to call him and try to get him back on the East Coast. And because I always tell people, you never know who's looking or who's going to affect your overall career. But anyway, Bailey listened to the young man, Brian Houston, and Bailey gave me a call and said, Coach, I would like for you to come and interview because we're looking for an offensive coordinator. Well, I had also received a call from Hampton, but the reason I chose to come to Virginia Union is because as an offensive coordinator, you want to be around a football program that the defensive coordinator is very strong. Mm-hmm. Jesse Chavez was the defensive coordinator. And we had been looking at Virginia Union because as well as we were out there winning the national championship, statistically, Union was shutting out everybody. So I thought, as an offensive coordinator, if I'm around a team that's not letting anybody score, all I got to do is drive my team down and get a field goal, and we should win.
Right.
So I felt like it was less pressure. But the way I still got here, Bailey said, Coach, I'd like for you to get a reservation and fly out here to Richmond, keep your receipt, and come on out and let's talk. Well, it's 40 years later, and I still got that receipt. I don't think Bailey paid me back yet, but but I'm glad that we did come out. I'm glad that we talked, because I knew in my mind, Mike, all the time that the NFL wasn't for me. To me, it's a meat market. Okay. You don't really have that humanistic side. Okay. And me looking at coaching as a ministry, I really felt like when I was out at the PWI that the young men that I was coaching could just probably, after they graduated, just get a shave, get a haircut, and go and work in the family business. Well, I didn't see that being the case for a lot of the young men coming out of the urban areas, the African-American young men. So I really, not being a Martin Luther King or anything like that, but I really thought that athletics was a vehicle that could really teach young people. In that small game of football, you could learn the game of life. And that is really what motivated me to choose the HBCU for the majority of my career, because we had offers to go to California. Mike Shanahan, who was the head coach at the Washington Redskins, where we worked together at Eastern Illinois. I was his offensive line coach. So the opportunities to do other things were really there, but a decision was made between my wife and I in terms of where do we feel we can be the most effective in terms of being change agents in young people's lives.
Gotcha. During your time here at VUU as athletic director, last year in the 2018 CIAA tournament, our men's and women's basketball team did something that they haven't done in history of this school, which was bringing home both championships. How did it feel to see both teams come bring home that trophy?
Well, it was very exciting, great time for all of Panther Nation, from California all the way back to Miami. It was a sense of pride. This place, Virginia Union, has a rich tradition in athletics, and especially under Dave Robbins with the basketball. So both had won the CIAA championship, but never both at the same time, the same year. So what a great experience. It was so great to see the young people again, just enjoying their experience here as students, as athletes, knowing too that they are making a difference in people's lives in terms of bringing excitement and pride. It was truly, a special moment, and to be a part of that, really, it makes all of the hard work, the late nights, early morning get-ups, sitting down, trying to make sure that we're organized as a department, making sure that we got the right leadership in place. That's very consuming. But when you see those kinds of results, it makes it all worthwhile.
Definitely. And when it comes to student athletes, I remember when I came in as a freshman in 2014. I saw your lengthy resume, your long history of championships, and just winning, your attitude and your approach that you brought to everyday life. And I was inspired, and I wanted to bring that into the football field, and onto everything I did. And it helped me become the man I am today, all these 5 years later. So, with that being said, what do you want to be left with your student athletes when it's all said and done when they graduate?
Well, one of the things I've always stated, and this is a true belief of mine, is that they do not build universities for athletics. It's about teaching, learning, and research. Once you get that part understood, you get that part straight, now you have the opportunity now to be successful as a person and athlete. But don't ever get it twisted. Understand that you came here to get a degree, because, you know, it's a very challenging world out here. There's a lot of people who don't mean you well, that will not, you know, enjoy in your joy. But the key of it is, if when you get that degree, boy, it puts you ahead of the curve. There's no guarantees with the degree, but without one, we know that life is so challenging. So just take these 4 or 5 years, enjoy the athletic side of it, but please understand that the good Lord put you here to make a difference. And that difference meaning when you make decisions in life, the right decisions, you go up, because choices are like elevators. They either take you up or take you down. Well, the more information, knowledge you have, that means you should be making better decisions. And when you make better decisions, I think your quality of life goes up. So we want all of them to understand, please, go to class, get that education, so you're at least giving yourself a chance to be successful.